The Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. For a free financial survival toolkit and newsletter, sign up at KerryLutz.com. KerryLutz.com.
1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz on the Financial Survival Network, and it's time for another Triple Lutz Report. Today, I want to talk about disaster preparedness. A couple of weeks ago, the East Coast got hit with a massive Halloween snowstorm. In all the years I've been living on the East Coast, in the Northeast, I don't remember ever having a white Halloween. And I go back a couple of years. According to the statistics, it was the first time New York City had an accumulation of snow prior to Thanksgiving since 1869. We're talking about the Civil War. The weather pattern, putting that aside, the important thing was that nobody was prepared for this snowstorm, and because the leaves were still on the trees, it turned into a complete disaster for the Northeast. Because the leaves were still on the trees and it was heavy, wet snow, numerous trees that were in relatively good health collapsed. They fell down and they took power lines with them. And this led to millions of people being without electricity for extended periods of time. Now, I mentioned myself, I was in Texas. Our plane got canceled, fortunately, so we didn't get back until Monday. The storm had occurred Saturday, so we missed 2 days of not having power. But it was about 40 degrees. It was extremely cold, uncomfortable, and we were fortunate because we have gas, so we were able to cook. And our hot water heater is a gas-fired hot water heater, so we had hot water. And we also had town water. But for people who didn't have gas to cook with and didn't have town water, who were reliant upon wells, this made their homes all but useless. And it brought to mind for me the fact that I don't have an adequate disaster plan. And what's a disaster plan? A disaster plan is, whether it's man-made or man-created, as the current administration would say, or it's a natural disaster, doesn't matter. The thing is this: infrastructure fails, the food supply might break down, and potentially social unrest. Well, there's a limit to what you can prepare for. However, you can prepare for the eventuality of losing your electricity. It's simple. Get a generator, have adequate flashlights and candles on hand, which is actually something that I did have. And even if you don't get a whole house standby power generator, get a small gasoline powered generator that can power a few lights, that can perhaps power a space heater and a hot plate and a coffee maker. Right? If you have that little generator and you use it sparingly, it can last you days. In addition, get an inverter for your automobile. Okay? Because you could put your automobile outside, start it up, hook up this inverter, and you could power a refrigerator and a number of other appliances in your home. And this is crucial because you've got to have some ability to power appliances. Otherwise, you really have problems. I mean, yes, the cell phones worked, but there's been times in the past where the cell phones haven't worked. And I want to make one thing very clear. I've lived in the Northeast my entire life. I have never lost power in the Northeast for more than about 12 hours, mostly due to storms knocking down power cables. In the past 2 months, we've had 2 different storms, Hurricane Irene and this one, which knocked out power to millions of people in the Northeast. This is an extremely rare and unheard of event, and yet we've had it twice in the past 3 months. So you must prepare. Then you need the plan which says, where do you go if you have to evacuate? Very important. There are particular types of disasters that require your evacuation, and that could be from floods, fires, earthquakes, any other multitude of disasters. But you need to think about where you're going to head and how you're going to get there, right? What happens if the local bridge is out? What are you going to do? Now, there's a limit to what you can prepare for. I suggest you prepare for the top, most likely 4 to 5 scenarios, which are quakes, fires, floods, loss of electricity. You could even lose your home. What are you going to do if your house burns down to the ground tomorrow? Where do you go? Now, that's a little easier. You go to a hotel, you rent an apartment, you presumably will have insurance, and you'll have a system behind you that will help you recover. The problem is when there's a mass disaster, when there's massive problems, there's nobody there to help you. Look at those people in New Orleans. Now, there's always the question of, do you evacuate? My sister, Harley, who lives down in Florida in the hurricane belt, believes that because she survived Hurricane Andrew, staying in her high-rise in Miami Beach, that there really isn't any disaster that she can't ride out. Now, as much as I love my sister and she's really intelligent, I don't agree with her. Those people in New Orleans when Katrina hit and in Mississippi probably thought the same thing as my sister. And there were numerous high-rises of extremely sound construction that were destroyed with a single breach of the seawall, or they were greatly damaged in any event. So when you see on the news and they've got this giant storm that takes up like half the continent and it's heading right for your little town, get out of there. Don't wait. There's no point in waiting. What are you going to prove? You think you're going to have the mother of all hurricane parties? Get out. Now, I don't believe that if it's a category 1 or 2 and you're not near the water that you should get out. But look, even Hurricane Irene, which was barely a category 1 hurricane, proved that there's times to evacuate. And when you're in a forest and there's a lot of trees at risk in a forested area, probably a good idea to get out. And as I am talking about disaster preparedness, I'm creating my own plan. When I have it done, I'll put it up on the web. You'll get to see it. And I think any plan has to focus on self-defense, how you're going to defend yourself if the police are overwhelmed, if the National Guard can't get in there, and any other possibility of civil breakdown, societal breakdown. I think it's an important question you need to think about. I'm not going to mention potential solutions. You can come up with your own, but it's something that you must think about. That's all for this Triple Lutz Report. Thanks for listening.